This video is for IB Digital Society students who are high-level students and they are preparing for exam paper 3. Now, exam paper 3, the IB issues a pre-release statement. So once the students get their pre-release statement, the idea is that you study it, first of all, to understand the kind of breadth and depth of the actual problem. And then on this pre-release statement, there's also they'll provide 2 interventions. And the idea, these are digital interventions, so students are to study these interventions to get a good understanding. But for question 3, paper 3 specifically asks a student to evaluate, some kind of an evaluative question about the intervention. So the best way to prepare is students need to evaluate both interventions, because on the exam, you're never quite sure which intervention they'll want you to evaluate, or maybe you need to evaluate both. So I've got a little video here, which is talk you through how to prepare for exam paper 3, question 3. Okay, on this website, digitalsociety.com, I have created a blog post, and this is the one here. Right here, it's called IB Digital Society Exam Paper 3 Guide for Success. Step number 1 is have an understanding of the command terms. Now, there's 3 different types of command terms, and if it's an 8-mark or a 12-mark question, it will be assessment objective number 3, AO3, which is an evaluation and a synthesis command terms. So I've got listed here all the different command terms that could appear on the exam paper, but I've highlighted evaluation, the evaluate command term, because this is probably the best way for you to prepare. You're going to basically evaluate both of the interventions. So the first thing, when you're sitting in that exam room, make sure you underline and identify exactly which command term is being used, but also you need to understand how to respond to that. So here's a few ideas about exactly how to respond. So that's step 1. Establish which command term and understand how you're actually going to respond. Step 2, exam question prediction. So to help with your preparation for exam paper 3, practice this question. It's very simple and it's very broad, specific. It's actually broad by design to allow for this kind of an inquiry research and independent research. And the question is, evaluate the 2 proposed interventions. Now we've got a question. It's time for us to evaluate the interventions by using IB specific criteria. Now the IB, the Digital Society Guidebook, has 6 specific evaluation criterion. The first one is equity, next one is acceptability, third one is cost, fourth one is feasibility, and the 5th one is innovation, and the last one is ethics. Now, quite often with the exam question, it will say evaluate intervention 1 or evaluate intervention 2 or evaluate both interventions with a focus on ethics. Now, based on past patterns, they don't specifically say ethics, so they might say something like privacy. So you've got to kind of connect the dots. If it's about privacy and transparency, it must be about ethics. But maybe for another criterion like acceptability, they may actually say evaluate intervention 1 in terms of acceptability. So in your preparation, you need to do some basic research on each one of those 6, and what I've provided here will help you do that preparation and research. So the first one I'm going to talk about is equity. So the first bunch of questions, this is a good way to practice. You can just answer these guiding questions, but that's a nice start. But what I really think, if you want to get a good mark, we need to tie in a bit more research-based, like analytical or evaluative framework. And I've suggested 3 different ones here. Now, don't study all 3. Just pick one of them. Now, if you already know what the intervention is, there usually is a nice kind of a match. So I'm preparing students right now for the May 2025 exam. And the proposed interventions is about like AI tools for recruitment. So when people apply for a job, having some AI tools to help sort through all the applicants. And the other intervention is a rule-based sorting process, so a decision tree type thing. So there's two different interventions, two different digital interventions. So with that in mind, if I look at the the equity, now would this be anything to do with disruptive justice analysis? Examine how this theory by Rawls examines how benefits and burdens are allocated across different groups and the veil of ignorance. I'm not sure about that one. What's the next one? Digital divide frameworks. Now I know what the digital divide is all about. I don't think that one applies to this specific intervention. Now what about the third one? Intersectionality theory. I've never heard of that. By Crenshaw. Okay, this framework analyzes how multiple social categories, race, yes, this is exactly the theory I need for the intervention that I'm studying for. So here's step one. I need to explore a little bit more about this. So go to your favorite AI tool. Maybe I'll use Gemini, and I want to learn a little bit more about this. So when using AI tools, first of all, you need to start, when you start a new chat, just give it some context. So IB Digital Society exam prep for paper 3. So I've just fed in a little bit of context to the AI tool. Next thing is I need a brief explanation of this. And then that's what I've just copy and pasted about the intersectionality theory by Crenshaw. So using this AI tool, I've given it some context, IB Digital Society. I've given it the theory that I need to learn more about. Now the last step is what kind of information do I want the AI tool to actually give me? Please give me an overview, and also I need examples of this. Now not just any example, digital technology examples, or maybe case studies. Or the other phrase that appears all the time in the Digital Society syllabus is real life examples. So let's see what it produces. Okay, so this is me studying for my exam. So here it is. It's explaining the core idea. Okay, race, gender, class. Now this is perfect for the interventions for May 2025 paper 3 exam. They've got the key content relevant to digital society. They've got some algorithmic bias with facial. So the idea is I'm now learning a bit more about Crenshaw's intersectionality theory. Now, how can I apply this theory to the intervention that's proposed? So that's what the skill is. So step one is find some kind of a theory to demonstrate your independent research and your depth of knowledge. And then now I'm going to evaluate the intervention through this kind of a Crenshaw intersectionality theory. And if I drop those phrases in an exam, it shows my depth of knowledge. It's demonstrating that I've done some independent research and I've got a depth of knowledge. That will overcome just some kind of a superficial, in regards to equality, this system is very equal, not very equal. This is kind of a shallow evaluation, but if you're tying your evaluation into actually a well-established theory, this is quality. So you're taking one theory and you're connecting it with the intervention and also linking it to the actual established problem to start with, because keep that in mind, there's an established problem, that's why the intervention is in place. So if you can connect these three things, you're on track for a 7. Then go to the next one. Acceptability. Now, with regards to the proposed interventions, would the TAM model fit best? Maybe. Would the UT-AUT fit best, or would the diffusion of innovations theory? I think this one will fit best, so I'm going to study this a little bit more. And then you repeat the process for cost. Pick one of these and learn about it, and then analyze both interventions through that lens. If you just do that, if you just finish your research there and you have a good understanding of each of those 6 different criteria and you can connect it to some kind of theory, you're on track for a good mark. But if you've still got extra time and you want to do some more preparation, I've suggested 2 extra ones. One is to do with sustainability, and I'll tell you the easiest thing is to talk about is one of the SDG goals. If you could connect it to an SDG goal, an intervention, the problem, the intervention, connect it with an SDG goal, that's great. It shows a bit of extra, you're adding insight, and that's one of the key things. If you want to get a 7, you need to demonstrate that you can add insight. The other one is, this is very popular in with digital intervention, that's the scalability. So you might talk about a local solution, and if it works, or an intervention, and if it works, could this then be scaled up, or could it be transferred to a different context, a different country, a different culture? So if you could talk about scalability and transfer, and there's a couple of models here. Now this one here, diffusion of innovation by Rogers, diffusion of innovations theory by Rogers, this one pops up a bit, so I would really recommend that you have an understanding of diffusion of innovations theory, because you can apply that to your evaluation as well. So once you've explored all 6, and the extra 7 and 8 if you're a high achiever, you can then move on to step 4, which is actually preparing to write your answer. Now the idea, we're just starting with that basic question, which is evaluate the 2 interventions. So to prepare your response, I think this model, the DECIDE framework, it's a well-known framework, actually works quite well for this exam question. So how the DECIDE framework works is, so this is your preparation, your essay, you're preparing your response for paper 3, question 3. Start with an introduction and a few bullet points. Here are the bullet points to follow. What I would recommend is don't just write the answer, actually plan it first. So with the planning, the key here is having some subheadings and then a couple of bullet points. Subheading, couple of bullet points. Now these are the subheadings. Introduction. And right here I've added a couple of bullet points. So just add the bullet points, and I would 100% recommend you do this with a piece of paper and a pen, because you're going to be in the exam room and that's how you're actually going to be writing the response. So get your body and your mind prepared for actually writing this. So write your subheading, introduction, jot down a couple of bullet points matched with my guide. Move on to the next thing, and now this is where the DECIDE structure comes in. So just I want to emphasize for each chosen criteria. So you're going to do this once for equity, and you define, you then explore, you then consider alternatives, you investigate the implications. The IB Digital Society examiners love this. It's what the course is all about. It's not about digital technology, full stop. It's about digital technology and the impacts and implications on different stakeholders. So this one's really, really important. And even use those 2 words. Use impact, use implications, because they're buzzwords in digital society. Now this one here, develop, the D, develop recommendation. This shows that you've got a bit of forward thinking. So you're thinking about short-term, long-term, future. So think about some recommendations, because if you've evaluated something, you've probably found a couple of weaknesses. And so once you identify some kind of a weakness, if you can develop a recommendation, that shows your higher level thinking and your forward thinking. So that's why the D is there. And then also, back to evaluation, evaluate your own recommendations. So I recommend this. However, it might work here, but it might not work here. So you're critically evaluating your own recommendations. So practice that. Then do it again. Now I'm going to do it for acceptability, DECIDE. So just do that. And if you've got time in your hands, you do it for all 6. Or if you're short of time, just focus on the ones that you think are most related to your specific pre-release statement for exam paper 3. And then the last bit, of course, is your conclusion. A couple of other things I've just added here. The IB loves real-world examples, so if you can tie in some real-world examples, please do. Once you've finished the DECIDE bullet points, if you've just done that, this is fantastic. You're prepared for this exam. But if you've got a bit of time on your hands, you can actually practice then writing the whole response out. And you can put yourself under some time pressure as well. Get your clock set up, get the paper, remove all distractions, and practice writing the response. Now also, just want to go back to when you're sitting in that exam room, before you start writing, please just take a moment to plan it out. If you plan it out and give yourself some time parameters, or words, or pages, or half a page, whatever it might be, it'll be so much easier to then write a clear response, because you've set up a framework for success. So once you've practiced writing the actual answer, Then you can move on to the last step, which is create your own IB style Digital Society Paper 3 exam questions. Now here's an easy template. First of all, find one of the command terms from the A03 section. Then, so it might be compare and contrast. Compare and contrast both proposed interventions in terms of, and then pick some of the six evaluation criteria. So write your own exam question and then just practice some outlines. Or if you've got more time, practice writing the actual response. So if you follow this guideline, I think you're going to have great success for exam paper 3, question 3, which is an 8-mark question.